Whether your team is your family, your business, or your employees, staying connected is crucial. You can depend on the Cross Insurance family
Very good.
to provide the best insurance solutions for you. We've got your team protected. Visit crossagency.com today.
Hey everyone, and thank you for attending this Boston Globe Black History Month Film Festival discussion of A Beautiful Resistance Season 3. My name is Julian Sarapru. I'm a fellow at the Globe. I've been reporting on a variety of beats, including education and business, and I'll be your host today. And before I introduce our wonderful panelists, I'd like to take a moment to remind our attendees that you can use the Q&A tool at the bottom of this Zoom. I'll be selecting some of your questions to ask our panelists at the end of our discussion. And you should also know that this event will be recorded and distributed post-event, just in case there's anyone you want to send it to who couldn't make it at this moment. And with that out of the way, I'd like to introduce our panelists. First up is Lisa Simmons. She's the artistic and executive director of the Roxbury Film Festival. Hey, Lisa, I want to start with, what's the Black history that you carry with you?
Oh my gosh, the Black history that I carry with me, I guess it would be my family's history. My grandfather, my aunts, and my uncles, who are all part of the Negro Theater, the WPA Theater in the 1930s here in Boston. So I carry that history with me every day in the work that I do with the Roxbury International Film Festival. So yeah, that's the Black history I carry with me today.
That's beautiful. I think that's something that we miss so often, right? With Black History Month is remembering that, for those of us who are Black, that, our families are a big part of that too. I was just home in New Orleans and hearing some family history, so I'll definitely connect with that. Yeah. And next we have Chaney Carlson Bullock, AKA Chaney the Director, and he's the director of A Beautiful Resistance Season 3. Chaney, I want to start with what's bringing you joy today or this month or this week?
Thank you for introducing me. What's bringing me joy is just the fact that, my dreams and everything that I wanted to do in life is like, I'm starting to take footsteps in it. I'm able to, run my business with my partner and be in community with people who are just always amazing me and inspiring me to continue doing what I want to do. And so I'm grateful to be in that space and to be surrounded by like-minded people who are continuously trying to uplift each other and kind of just on the same page. So that's what's bringing me joy as of today and as of the last couple of years. So
awesome. Yeah, it's Black History Month, but you look into the future, right? And so that's a good way to start it. And also last but certainly not least, we have Janae Osterhelt with us. She's a culture columnist and so much more to all of us at the Globe. And she's also the creator and producer of A Beautiful Resistance. And Janae, I want to ask you, what is your beautiful resistance? It's a question you ask others so often. So let's hear yours.
Well, my answer changes often. Today, I would say my life is a beautiful resistance because of you. I would say that being able to continue the tradition of journalism and sharing space and helping others and seeing how you blossom and grow and move. And that's my beautiful resistance. I would say watching you just be your beautiful self gives me inspiration.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. Y'all, she's not just doing it for the camera. She really is the best for me. So with that out of the way, introducing all of the wonderful people I have with me, I'm excited to tell everybody who's attending, about the big things that are coming with the Beautiful Resistance Season 3. And I want to start with you, Lisa. This is also Roxbury Film Festival's 25th anniversary, right? 2023. It's the largest film festival in New England that centers people of color. And I want to ask you, what does it mean to you to reach 25 years? Did you ever imagine that it would get as big as it has when you created it?
Never. I don't think that any of us ever thought that what we were creating 25 years ago would be sustainable and that we would be celebrating 25 years. But it just goes to show you that it's not it's not just about supporting filmmakers and storytellers. It's also about bringing those stories to audiences. And I think that what we understand is that we all know that we're not a monolith, right? And that we need to see more stories about ourselves. And there's such diversity in ourselves. And there's love, and there's family, and there's like, there's all sorts of ways that we express ourselves, and we're never seeing that on the big screen. So the film festival, it gives everybody an opportunity to share their vision and their voice with a wider audience. And I think that, it is pure joy that after 25 years, people that have been coming to the festival for 25 years, even 20 years, are still coming because of what we're bringing to the table. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think, my sister Allison and I, now she's the co-director of the festival. And I think that after each year, I think that we always say, oh my gosh, I can't believe we did that. And I can't believe the reaction that we're getting still from filmmakers and audiences alike. So I just feel blessed that we're still here 25 years later.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing to shrug your shoulders at, right? Especially when you're doing the work of creating space for others who aren't always in those spaces, right? And Janae, I want to pivot to you and ask you about, A Beautiful Resistance Season 3, right? It's going to premiere the week of Juneteenth in conjunction with the Roxbury Film Fest. And I wonder if you could tell us about, the intentionality of choosing to put the festival, to conjoin it with the festival and to have it, in that week, obviously, of Juneteenth.
Well, it's Lisa's, as she was saying, it's their 25th anniversary, and Rox Film Fest, to me, I know you asked her earlier about the Black history that she carries with her. If I'm thinking about the Black history I carry with me, I have to look at Rox Film Fest. Like, if Rox Film Fest didn't exist, quite possibly I wouldn't have space to be creating A Beautiful Resistance. And as we look to focus and center Black love, Lisa works with her sister, and they're celebrating this big feat. And I just thought, like, what a victory, what an honor it is that they're doing this, but also to be able to tell their story. Our first episode of season 3 will be the story of Rox Film Fest and Lisa and her sister, told through the lens of Lisa and her sister. And it's like that celebration of them, of what it means to make film, what it means to be Black, and have agency of story, and also celebrate Juneteenth at the same time. It's just really like a gift. It's a blessing to be able to do that. Cheney and I are very excited about it.
Yeah, and something that Roxbury Film Fest has done, throughout the quarter of a century y'all have been around, right, is to make space for young filmmakers of color in Boston, right, and beyond, but specifically in Boston. And Cheney, as somebody who falls into that category, right, what does it mean to you to be able to work on, ABR, which also centers Black voices in the city, and the fact that y'all are highlighting the Roxbury Film Fest in season 1, and that you're going to be premiering alongside of it?
Yeah, I mean, I say this all the time, but every time we have a shoot and, whoever the subject is or subjects, I always say it's like the coolest person I've ever met. Like, every time it's always somebody who's doing amazing work in their community, whether it's like on the sports side or in the film side or whatever their interests are. It's just like, it's almost like going into like a front stage class every time of just people doing excellent things and people to like look forward to, like trying to emulate some of the great things that they're doing. So I'm so grateful that, myself and my partner, Michaela, are even able to be in this room and just be able to capture it from our perspective. And so to be able to play that little piece, to at least put it together and stuff like that, is just like an honor. And I can't thank Janae enough for bringing us in on that. So.
Yeah,
I just want to say, I didn't know Cheney. Janae is like the most amazing connector and cool people, and getting people, and lifting us up constantly. And I mean, that's my beautiful resistance for today, is Janae, and the way that she just lifts up Black folks and puts us, front and center, and gives us voice to talk about the things we do. And I loved meeting Cheney. I was like, I didn't even know. And then, it's all about, in this world, especially in Boston, is connecting each other, and then connecting you to secret society. And like, it's just, we all are just, it's like it becomes this big family.
Yeah, and speaking of, family and in season 3, right? I wanted content to kind of what the content of season 3 is going to be. And the theme throughout, which Janae already mentioned, is Black love, right? And so Janae, I want to ask you, as the creator, why did you choose that topic, and why is love important to resistance?
So every season has a theme. The first season was very much about the land and place and what it means to kind of have your own space, whether it's like buying a house or owning land, farming, documenting. And season 2 kind of went into purpose. And then for Black History Month, we always do kind of special things, special presentations, shorts, Q&As. And as Embrace was being built, and I was thinking really hard about how so many of our monuments are tributes to violence. And here we have this monument being built that's a tribute to love, specifically Black love, and love as the ultimate language of liberation. And it really inspired me, because even though we always center the joy in A Beautiful Resistance, I want people to remember that there is no justice or freedom or revolution without love. And it first starts with kind of loving ourselves, but it's also the many ways in which we love on each other. So, in February, probably on to early March, we'll have stories of romantic Black love and kind of R&B love. But then when season 3 launches, it's going to be all kinds of love. It's going to be sisterly love, love of the culture, love of the game, love of the movement. There's going to be all types of stories that just show how that is our Black history. It's our Black present, and there's no Black future without it. So that's sort of what guided me on it.
Gotcha. And Chaney, I want to ask you about some of the technical aspects, right? For me, as somebody, I've done a little bit of filmmaking myself. I know that, providing the visuals and, the audio for a subject matter as abstract as love can be kind of complicated, right? It's not straightforward. So I wonder, how did you and Janae and Michaela kind of navigate the visual and auditory components of the season, especially, building off of what y'all did last season?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say, obviously Janae's strength is with words and with speaking, and she's just able to express the vision so well that like it's easy to receive, you know what I mean, of what she's looking for. And so, we just take that and all the information that she gets, and just like, I mean, personally, I love like references, just like, watching music videos or movies and things like that, just to get the vibe for it. And just kind of pulling from, different directors and things like that, getting inspiration to be able to put it together. And I guess just making sure that I'm continuously like improving my work, so that the audio, when we get these people down in the seat and what they're saying is super important, that the audio is crisp and clear, and that the scene is just beautiful to be able to match the importance of what they're saying. So I guess the long story is just, listening very well to what Janae's saying, and this, pulling some references to make sure that it really matches the vibe.
Wait, can I interject?
I know.
Mm-hmm.
It is a partnership, and I do the storyboarding and I choose the people. And sometimes I will say, Chaney, I want this to be the cold open, or can we shoot a shot to look like this? But I want to be very clear that like Chaney and Kayla have a beautiful creative vision. And when we come together and I tell them, hey guys, this is what I'm thinking for the season, or this is what I'm thinking for this person's episode. He's a very effective listener, and he takes it above and beyond. All last season, I chose season 2, I chose 3 local filmmakers. At the time, all 3 of them were under 30. And use the small budget I have to kind of like buoy them and make sure that young Brown and Black folks in Boston were not just in front of the camera or being quoted, but they also had agency in visually telling their stories. And Chaney and I worked together the most, which is what's led Chaney to be my head person for season 3. And Chaney is so smart and creative about things that he has just listened to me complain about random stuff for like a year. Like, just like, oh, I wish we could. I used to have a videographer at the Globe that did animation and knew how to do all these cool little tricks. And she never worked on ABR. She just did, we worked on other projects together. And I had told him that, and I told him some other things that I wish, we could do, or scenes I'd like to see. And he's went and learned all those things on his own and surprised me and incorporated them in some episodes that you'll see in season 3 and in Black History Month in March, Black History Month through March. I would also say that Chaney crafted the introductory scene, the one where I'm often greeting people and hugging them, and you get kind of a glimpse of my outfit, which is it's not like a stylistic flex. Like, yes, it's my outfit, but it's also often I'm wearing Black owned things that are designed by Black and brown designers and designers of color. And that's a Chaney that the director touch. I would also say something signature to Chaney's style, because he's given me a lot of credit, and I don't want to say that I'm not doing those things. It's a collaboration, and a lot of it is from my brain, but I want him to take some space here and really be acknowledged for, there's a reason why I consistently go to him, is because he is the only person who understands everything that's going on in my brain. And there's always 20 things going on at once. And I say it and he gets it. And on top of that, his visual touch is so soft. Like, when you watch something that Chaney shot, to me, it's the only thing that feels like my words, but visually, that's the tone he shoots in. It's the way the scenes move. Even if I'm the one who says, hey, I want this to be the cold open, or can you get them to play with each other's hair, or just anything like that. Like, he just takes it and makes it sing.
That's beautiful. Lisa, you had something you wanted to add?
No, I've been on plenty of sets. I've supported plenty of filmmakers over the last 25 years. It's the joy of being able to run a festival and meeting directors. And, I think the same thing. What's one of the things that we don't do, right? We don't give ourselves enough props, because I don't know whether it's because we don't think we deserve them, or we just don't want to feel like we're boasting. But I feel like, when you're doing great things, when you're producing good stuff, I think we need to pat ourselves on the back a lot more. And it's okay to say, I do this and I have this vision, or, you know what I mean? Because I think it's true. Like, I just worked with Chaney that one time. And, you could feel that. It's really, and the attention to detail is something, as a film festival curator, attention to detail is key, and sound is key, and story is key, and lighting is key. So to understand the importance of that and putting together a film is such a big part of it, right? And then that sort of, like, as Janae is saying, that soft touch on the set is really important as well, right? It's like understanding your subjects, and then understanding what your director is looking from you, and not being overbearing. And so I think that all those things, that Janae is saying about the work that Chaney's doing, needs to be elevated. And just me saying, we need to love ourselves a lot more than just, this is who I am. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I don't do that either. But this is all about Black love, and Janae is focusing on Black love. And I do think that so much of that is self-love, right? And being able to tell your story in a way that you don't think it's boastful, but that people need to understand who you are.
And sorry, I just wanted to add one quick thing too, that you can also, like, when you're on the set too, like, especially with ABR, it's like there's authentic Black love in there already. Like Janae, like, shows me and Michaela so much love, and like all the people that we're interviewing, you can see that there's mad love there. So it almost adds to the ability for us to do well, because they're like, not only do we witness the love, but we feel the love. So you almost feel like a part of it as well. So it's like when you're editing it together, you kind of reminisce how you felt during that shoot, which was love. And then you're editing love. And it kind of is just like this full circle of like actually living in it and being able to then show it to other people. So I think that's a huge part too.
Well, I think that's beautiful. Love begets love, right? I think we all know that. And so that's obvious in the praise that you've got. For those who are listening, you know, and watching, Chaney, you just heard all his talents, the chops he has. So make sure y'all tune in to season 3. I'm sure it's going to be great. And staying on the topic of love, you know, Lisa, I want to ask you, you know, Roxbury Film Fest has shown countless films on the topic of Black love, right? I just went to the screening of The Rebellious Life of Miss Rosa Parks at the MFA, you know, earlier this month. And there was a lot in there about Black love and the complications and, you know, the uniqueness of it, right? And so I wonder if you could talk to me about, you know, the abundance of Black love and the variety of that Black love comes in that you've seen, you know, on screen and otherwise.
Oh my gosh. I mean, 25 years of watching films, probably over 1,800 to 22,000 films. I mean, I feel like, you know, and Janae had talked about this before too, about, you know, Black love is so many things. And I think when you see it on the screen, whether it's a father and son, whether it's a family, whether it's a couple, you know, whether it's sisters, whether it's love for culture, whether it's, you know, a love of self, whether it's, you know, I mean, there are so many ways to express that, whether it's through a film that's, a painful film about losing a child. There's a love between a couple and going through that. There's all you can, I think one of the things that now that I'm thinking about it, as we curate it, you know, we never think about, oh, like, you know, we're curating for love, but in thinking about what we've screened over these many, many years, so much of that, and maybe that's a big key to audience appreciation too, and audience coming back, because you can see the love in all of these films because it's authentic, right? And because you're telling a story, whether it's sad or not, there's still something that's very genuine about the way, you know, people interact with other people in other spaces. So yeah, I could name a million, but you know, but I think that is a good theme that we think about and that we see in these independent films, because people are given the opportunity to do that, and they're telling their own stories. They're the storytellers, the Black and brown folks that are in our, they're the storytellers, and that's why it's so authentic, and that's why you feel that, because it's them telling their story and wanting to share that with the world, and that to me is beautiful.
And, you know, speaking of us telling our own stories, right? And this is something I want to open up to all of y'all, is this idea of, you know, Lisa and the Roxbury Film Fest and your sister, right, being highlighted in the first episode of ABR season 3, right? What does it mean, you know, to have your story told after giving platform to all these people, you know, for all these years, to have, you know, how that started now being told and giving the trust to let that be done too. I wonder if you could talk to me a little bit about that, Lisa, and then, you know, Janae and Chaney, if y'all could talk about what it was like on y'all side as well.
I have no idea what this is going to look like. I trust Janae and Chaney and Kit Michaela absolutely 100%. It was so much fun. You know, my sister and I are best for like greatest bestest for like, and I hope that came out in the interview. I just think that we were so honored to have Janae and Chaney and Michaela, you know, sort of like tell our story. And so I mean, it feels great. It feels great to be able to share that, you know, sisters have this particular relationship, and here's a relationship that you know, which is why Rox Film Fest is working the way it's working right now. It's authentic. There's so much love behind not only what we do, but with our committee that have been with us for so many years also. It feels great to be able to shine a light on that, and using that as a platform to talk about the International Film Festival and what it means to so many other people and why we do what we do. It's totally a labor of love. Totally.
I can go next. I guess for me, I thought it was really awesome just to see the variety, and obviously you guys will be able to see more of who we actually featured, but to see the variety of love, which is awesome. Like, I'm a sibling. I have a lot of brothers and sisters, blood and not blood, and by marriage and by not marriage. And to see that is awesome, because I think a lot of times when you think of Black love, or you just think of love in general, a lot of people might think romantic love or whatever. But it's cool to just see like the genuine connection between the sisters, and like them running a business together, which, you know, like there's struggle. I run a business with my partner as well. There's definitely ups and downs, but to be able to like have that together is just a really loving way, and the way that they were with each other and stuff like that. So for me, just, yeah, being able to experience and highlight those variety of loves, I just think is really cool and important.
I think, you know, after every season, I kind of, when everything's wrapped and the last episode is up, I take a deep breath, and then I start thinking like, I start thinking, what is the through line? Because with the first season, I actually just wanted to create space. So I chose my people. Some of them were like at the very tippy top of my list, and some of them were serendipity. It was like something happened that led to something, and I was like, this is the person. It was, you know, it was during early COVID. There was no vaccine, so there was a lot of things that had to be done differently. And then when I was done and I was looking at all the works, I was like, oh my gosh, like we really focused on land and place here. So then season 2, I'm like, okay, let's find a theme ahead of the game. And that's when I chose purpose. With Black love, for me, it was almost near impossible not to think of Rocks Film Fest and not to think of Lisa. I have called on her so many times for conversations like the one we're having today. And, you know, sometimes it's a small crowd, sometimes it's a big crowd, but she's to me a hero in our city, and we don't shine light on her enough. And I've been telling her for a long while, I'm going to do something with you. I'm not sure I'm going to do something with you. And I remember when she was saying the 25th was coming up, and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? And I was like, oh, Black love, like she should like be in this. And as well, you know, she and her sister, and I have a sister. And to answer your question, Lisa, like, did it come across? Like, it absolutely came across. It came across, y'all love for each other came across so big and heavy that I texted my sister, who I had a falling out with, because I missed her so much watching you two. Whenever I'm like thinking of people, I'm always kind of, because, you know, we all have Black love. Everybody Black is carrying Black love in their spirit. So it could have been anybody, but when I'm picking people, I often look for this feeling in my spirit when I'm like storyboarding, and it was just a no-brainer. It was like they were literally one of the first names I told Cheney, because Cheney and Keeks are always like, okay, who are we? Like, they're always curious as to who I'm picking. And they were like one of the easiest first names, because it was just spiritually, it was, the alignment was just impossible to ignore. I feel like it had been calling to me all along.
Yeah, that's beautiful that it kind of came together like that, and that y'all are even, you know, putting the premieres together, right, and allowing that to offset the premiere of the 25th, which is such a big, you know, anniversary. And it's something that I also want to talk about too, is a little bit about the visual side too of shooting Black folks from a filmmaking perspective, right? You know, it's something that you have to do a bit differently. So I wonder if y'all can tell me a little bit about what that's like to put Black folks on camera, especially when, you know, a lot of the techniques that may be taught, you know, in classic training of film school don't necessarily apply to us, and, you know, the way our hair look, our skin takes light, you know, things like that. All y'all have experience with that at this point, so anybody can answer.
I'm going to let Cheney and Lisa answer this. But what I'll say before I give the floor to them is, this is why I fought to have Black people behind the camera. First season, there was COVID, so I couldn't really do a lot to at the Globe to say, hey, I also need all this extra money to get these Black filmmakers. So we did what we could with what we had, but we knew even back then, I had told my boss even back then, as soon as we figure out what's next, we're hiring Black people to be behind the camera, because it's not just lighting. It's also a sense of safety. And there's also a spatial thing. There's certain things as a people that just don't feel comfortable for us. Now, go real filmmakers.
I guess. Yeah, I guess like what Janae's like saying with it's sometimes it's like it's even more about like, or less about the actual physical shooting. Like obviously, you get experience and it's like, warmer light tends to look better on the skin and things like that. But I think even, with the music that we choose and just like the aesthetic, the B-roll, like what really kind of like enhances and really shows the culture as much as you can in 15 minutes, like those little things that you just have to kind of like be a part of to even know or understand or even know what to look for per se, or even just little things like fixing the hair, this or that, or just like the little cultural things and just understandings. And like again, going back to the love, is just like having that genuine love for our people. You're gonna kind of look out for us a lot more and make sure that it looks perfect and that the skin tone is hitting just right and that the B-roll is like the right angle and all that stuff. So yeah, I guess long story short, that's what I got to say. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important. And I mean, 25 years ago at the, when Rocks Film Fest first started, I had also started a company called the Color Film Collaborative, because I felt like it was really important that Black people come together to create their own story, and you have a producer and a director and a writer, and that you would have that aspect on set. And it makes a huge difference because it's like shorthand, right? And people, as Cheney was saying, like it's not just the getting the lighting right. It's also the language, the texture of a piece that you can tell, that brings out, pieces of that culture that's authenticity, right? That brings out the authentic voice of the people that are the subjects, whether it's a narrative or whether it's a documentary. It's really important. And it brings also out the comfort level of the people who are in front of the camera, that you don't have to, ask questions, that your director or your producer or your fellow actor or the person you're in the documentary with understands. And I think that that's really important. And I lift up everyone who's doing that and working within that space and bringing in, crews and sets of color to be working on subject matter that is focused on Black life. I think it's a really important part of, as I said, bringing that authenticity to life.
Gotcha. Yeah. And I want to take our first audience question now. This comes from Ty Med, and they ask, it's a two-parter. So first, how do you stay representing the culture the way that you see it, right? And I assume that means not letting outsiders influence the way that you tell the stories, being genuine about it. So maybe y'all can answer that first part, and then we can get to the second part.
I mean, I think if you're showing up as your authentic self, that's where it starts with. And then you try to make space so that you can properly witness others authentically. Because I never want to claim to be the voice of anybody. Like, that's so narcissistic. I want to be a microphone that amplifies those voices. I want to be a magnifying glass, but mostly I want to be a witness. I want to be able to make sure that I am in an authentic, whole place, that I can hold the type of space that allows our people to share their stories authentically and safely. It's necessary that we document. Like, so many of us don't have our history. Like, I can't tell you what my great-great-grandmother did, or I don't know those stories. My dad has very limited information on those stories. So a lot, not for everybody, because some of us are super lucky and have like well-kept records of our histories and our families. But I think there are a good portion of Black people in America who, they just started documenting over the last couple generations. So it's like us doing what we're doing now. We are witnessing and documenting and recording pieces of history. These are our living testimonies, and we can't represent as we see it authentically without supporting and lifting each other and creating that space for one another. I mean, that's why Rocks Film Fest is so special. That's why ABR, that's why I work myself tirelessly to do ABR. Like it's important.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think it's really, there are a lot of people that are doing the work of making sure that Black and brown people are being represented in a way that they should be. And I think that it's a position that you take on. It's a role that you take on because you understand the importance of it. And I would never stop doing that. I think that there are so many stories out there that continue to need to be told and need to have a platform to tell them. And what part of that question was about deep pockets and getting money from other people maybe who aren't Black or brown. And I think that that's important too. I think that everyone wants to help support. It shouldn't in a way stop you from doing the work that you're doing. You hold true to your vision and what you want other people to see. And that shouldn't change that. People are supporting you because they believe in your vision too, and they believe in wanting to see these voices be lifted up. And so, oftentimes that is where the money might be coming from, and it shouldn't stop you from doing the representation of the work that you're already doing. So, I don't think that we'll ever stop doing this. I mean, I say that 25 years is a long time, but there will be others that will come when we have to stop for whatever reason, but we're not. It's incredibly important.
Sorry, Julie, can you repeat the question real quick? I kind of lost it.
Yeah, no worries. And sorry, I mispronounced the guest name. Is Time. And so the question is, how do you continue to represent culture in a way that's kind of true to yourself, while also, and I think Lisa brought this up, while also navigating who's funding these projects and the money that may have to come from elsewhere, because sometimes we don't have that money in our community to be able to tell these stories. But how do you navigate that juxtaposition?
Yeah. I guess for me, it's just like staying authentic and kind of like keeping a pulse on the culture and things like that, making sure I'm not only just focused on work, but making sure I'm going out and experiencing the culture and things that are happening in the community, so that if I'm in a space that, there may be different viewpoints, I at least know I have an authentic viewpoint that I could advocate for in that way. And so I'm not just necessarily speaking from an outsider's perspective, but, even just being Black in general, each city has its own culture as well. Black Bostonian might be different than a Black New York person. So just having that authentic connection to what's going on in the city, what's happening in the school systems, what are people experiencing? So that, when you are in those rooms, you can at least advocate with some backup information, and you might be able to sway some knowledge. You might be able to bring a different approach or a different mindset that people weren't thinking because they might not have been there or, gone to these places or had those experiences. So.
For funding, for the second part of the question was about funding. It's complicated because it's for me specifically, because it's I'm at the Boston Globe and people think, oh, we must have endless amounts of money, but we don't. We don't have endless amounts of money. Journalists, actually, this is not a money business, particularly this form of journalism. So for me, that comes into being creative and having creative partners. The Museum of Science has been very supportive of us doing live events and making sure they're community-based and they're free and people have access to them. We have one this Friday, and teaming up with Reebok for Black History Month a couple of years ago, where they actually gave us enough money to lift the paywall for a whole month, which at the Boston Globe is a really big deal to make sure everybody can access the content. I'm in the middle of lifting the paywall now. We try to lift it as once a year to create that access, but I'm also trying to write grant proposals to help get money that would cover classes for Chaney, equipment for Chaney. When I first met Chaney, his prices weren't high enough. So I was like, no, we're going to raise your prices. So, I'm not exactly comfortable yet with really stepping into my role as like a filmmaker, producer / co-director. It's still something that I'm getting used to. I'm just like a journalist who also does it on film and storyboards on film. But I recognize the need to create space and funding. We have an intern at a HBCU, and I worked with the school to kind of help figure out some things with her. And I'm trying to more formalize that opportunity so that we can get funding. But it's really just like knocking on people's doors and picking up the phone and asking for funding is an issue for creatives. It really is, especially Black creatives. And I'm so thankful for the people out there like Makiba McCreary who are like really working hard to sort of solve for these issues that we see. But yeah, that's a hurdle. I think we're all like trying to figure out how to answer that question.
Yeah, when Janae is so much more than a journalist, you're obviously a space maker, which, is something that came out in that whole answer. So, give yourself the credit too. I also want to ask y'all too with, like you're saying, the need to still tell so many of our stories and the diversity of experiences in, the Black diaspora. Like, how do you cut that stuff down to 15 minutes, right? When there's, I'm sure, so much great content and so much that you want the larger audience to know, or, even Lisa, when you're talking about feature film length, right? Even then you always have, even if the feature film is an hour and a half, you have 3 to 5 hours of content, right? So tell me about cutting it down and picking what's important and the pain of leaving stuff out.
Chaney can start with that one.
All right. Yeah, that's the one like behind the scenes that people don't see that it's the worst. It's like the best part because I have cool content to work with, but it's the worst part because you're just like driving yourself like you don't even know like wow but honestly what I do is as simple as just go with my gut. It's like just like I said, listening to Janae, being in tune with the culture and then just going with your gut and just kind of making some cuts because you don't want to lose the audience. That's the biggest like threat is losing the audience and not getting any message out there. So sometimes just making it as simple as possible so it's digestible for people and, just, making the cut. And then you never know if we ever have to go back to the content. Like Janae has access to like the full interviews and stuff like that in case you wanted to see something else. But yeah, I just go with my gut.
It's never, as a filmmaker, it's never over, right? Your final cut is never your final cut. There's always a piece that you're like, oh, I just want to add that. I just want to add that. As a curator for a film festival, it's really important that filmmakers understand what their story is and what story is that they're trying to tell, because you only have one bite at the apple, so to speak, right? And so like what Chaney's saying, you go with your gut, Janae's talking about doing storyboarding. And I think that what happens, and I love the whole thing about, Janae finding money to give Chaney classes. I mean, one of the things about filmmaking or any art form is that you're constantly learning, right? It's something you need to constantly be doing yourself, is to constantly teaching yourself how to do stuff. And so yeah, I mean, it's really hard to leave stuff on the cutting room floor, but if you understand where your story is going and where you want it to end, it's not as difficult. And storyboarding helps with that immensely. And we see it all the time when we're watching films, that the filmmaker sort of didn't know which way to go and then the ending falls flat. And it's hard, and I know it's hard, and it's hard to edit that. And you want to keep that one piece in that's going to make your film 10 minutes longer, but it really shouldn't be. So yeah, that just saying from a curator point of view, I've seen a lot of those films, and it's hard. It's hard to leave those things on the cutting room floor.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, even for me, when I'm writing stories, it's something that, we deal with too a lot is,
Well,
killing.
exactly. You capture all this information as journalists. You have to make these decisions about what you're going to put in, right? And what you're going to, so it's the same thing, or you're only doing it in a different format.
Keeping everybody happy while presenting it in a way that's accurate and fair is also really hard, right? But another question we have from the audience, I want to stay on this issue of, some of the challenges, right? And, one anonymous attendee asked, what would you say are your most challenging obstacles in addition to fundraising?
Time. Finding the time for me would be one of the biggest hurdles. I feel like every week I have this long punch list of like 40 things because I'm doing multiple jobs, and like a beautiful resistance is like, it's the most fulfilling part of one of the most fulfilling parts of my job, but it's literally like an actual small part of the many things I do. And so it's like finding the time to kind of make sure I'm watering that world that I've built and being in community with the community that I love so much, while also writing other stories, writing other columns, and developing strategies and processes at the Globe for my other job, and mentoring and just doing all the things. So it's like trying to be in harmony is probably, like, I think outside of funding, one of my biggest challenges, especially this year, especially as we build out season 3, which is why who you work with is so important. Like working with Janie and Keeks, and like the chemistry we have is so essential to me. And I'm sure Lisa can speak to this with her team. It's like when you're doing a lot of things all at once, having people you trust, having people you feel safe with, having people who you can say, here's who we're talking to, we're going to shoot at this time, this day, here's the kind of B-roll we should be thinking about. And they're just like, bam. It allows a sense of ease and a sense of like, okay, I can let go of the reins a little bit and focus on some of these other facets of the world we're building, when I have that in place. But I'm definitely interested to hear everyone else's hurdles.
That's a huge hurdle for me. It's always been, but when you're creating something, right, out of passion, oftentimes that's the space where you would use for yourself. But I mean, I want to touch upon teams too, and working with people, because that also brings energy, that gives you energy. So it's not, going into that space, it's when it's a labor of love, when you have people you work with in that space who also, bring that like really positive and loving energy, it helps, and it helps a lot. But, I think, fundraising has always been, the biggest hurdle for us. And I think for most, especially Black-led organizations. But I would say, yeah, I mean, I agree with Janae. It's really finding time for yourself for the projects you want to do. I've been working on this documentary about the Negro Theater, I think, for 20 years. And gosh darn it, I'm going to get it done. But I have to, but it's, it's doing the work, for and with other people that right now is where I'm supposed to be. And I honor that because it's a special place. So yeah, I think carving out time, I think that's an important part of, we need energy, right? We need to stop for a moment in order to recharge. So.
Yeah, I guess for me too, like, obviously I agree with the time as well, but I think also the mental aspect of it too, because like the topics that we're doing are, obviously this is Black love, which is more uplifting, but there's some hurt behind it. And I could see that, like, us together, like I think that we've seen things in this world that push us to do what we do now. And so kind of balancing that mental stress and like taking time away from the work, even though it's so important, and trying to push yourself to work a couple more hours, even though you probably should take some break, or, finding time to just enjoy something that's not necessarily so heavy. I think for me, just trying to balance that a little bit. is definitely hard, just like, because it is so important. You just want to always be like uplifting and pushing the message, but you got to recharge sometimes too. So pushing myself away from this computer area that you guys can see here is probably my biggest struggle.
Yeah.
I want to add one other thing. Sorry, Joe. I just wanted to add one other thing. I think one of the hardest things too is that because what we do, it seems like it's easy. And I think that the perception, like Janae was saying about like fundraising, like people think because the festival's been going on for 25 years that we have a boatload of cash and it's easy. It's never easy. It's always, it's difficult. But we make it look easy because of how passionate we are about the work that we're doing. And so that's the sort of like one thing that's hard too, is to explain to people, this is like, it's hard. It's hard curating a festival. It's hard raising money. And for people to think that, oh, well, it's really easy to do that. So that's also another thing that's difficult, right? For people to understand.
Yeah, y'all are, creating magic, right? But, the people don't see what's behind the scenes of creating magic, right? And you have to, like y'all said, give yourself that self-love and that space for your own to take care of yourself too, right? And I think we only have time for one more question. And I'm going to ask this question from Chase. He asked, how do you aim to keep young Black creatives inspired and engaged with the work that you produce? And what advice would you give to young Black creatives who are trying to produce cultural projects?
I can go with this. So a lot of the work that I do is revolved around the youth, and we do a lot of like sports youth program and things like that. So I'm luckily able to be in spaces with a lot of young people a lot. And I just think to continuously my biggest thing is like when I'm filming youth is to make them look like superstars so that they can envision themselves as a superstar, whether you're an athlete or you're just a student or whatever you're doing. So I kind of like putting them in a place so that they can feel, which is exactly what Janae did for Mikhail and I, but like putting them in a place that they can basically act as if what they wanted to be, I think is like the best thing. Cause then you're opening their imagination to like, you can do this, you can be this, you can be on this show, you can be this athlete, you can do whatever you want. And also, whenever we can, trying to get them involved in the project, like show them a little bit about, photography, film, try to make it look cool and stuff like that. Just kind of expand the world so that, they can see that there's really no limit. And especially now with social media and cameras being they're expensive, but they're being more accessible to people. I've seen a lot of youth who have awesome highlight videos and are doing really big things in the city. Coming out with merch and stuff like that as well. So even supporting that as well and buying clothes and just, when you see them doing it, just kind of give them that push, like what you're doing is dope and you should keep doing that.
Yeah, I think it's really important. We have a whole section for student filmmakers at the Roxbury International Film Festival. It's really important to make sure that they are seeing their films up on the screen, that they think of themselves as filmmakers, that they get the accolades, think of themselves as filmmakers, that they can do Q&A and talk about their films because people really care about them. I want to give a shout out to the Secret Society of Black Creatives, which is a new organization here in Boston that was really doing the work around supporting, young up and coming filmmakers who are interested in the business and holding classes and, working with a bunch of other folks to make that happen. It's really important that we are able to have these opportunities to give, and Loop Lab as well, to give the opportunities to the young folks who want to be in this business and provide mentors and be there, as they're growing, to support the work they're doing.
I would say, and I'm going to add, there's another question that was specifically about ABR, about will there be a podcast? And I'm going to answer that first because I think it lends itself to the answer about supporting creatives. ABR exists as like a world. It's not just the short films, it's the short films plus a long form story, Q&As, and then the Instagram that runs anywhere from 3 to 7 whole days a week. It exists that way by design to create access so that whether you have a subscription or not, you'll be able to create access pieces of ABR, and also exist that way because not everybody's going to read a 1,500 word piece, but they might watch a 15-minute video, or they might love to like share a Q&A. But it also gives me and my team an opportunity to show people in a variety of lights and to share space in a variety of ways. And to me, how you inspire young creatives is by opening those pathways and stimulating their imagination and showing them all the different ways in which we do story. We can do story by writing, we can do story by photography, we can do story by video, we could do story by these short, quippy Instagram posts. There's like so many ways we can do it. And the people we're featuring are people like them. You know, you don't always have to be operating in extreme excellence or suffering in brutality to have someone tell your story. You don't need to be measured that way. That's not fair. Like, we exist in multitudes and we have nuance. So, you know, that's why it exists. ABR is a mixtape. You know, when we release it, it's got the different facets of a mixtape. Someone asked about a podcast. We all were there. We were this close to a podcast deal. It didn't work out, but we're still working on the possibilities of a new deal and what that could look like in the future. We'll see. But right now we're just focused on telling stories of Black folks, sharing that space with other folks of color and other marginalized identities, and making sure we are inspiring other Black creatives. Just do it, guys, whether it's your camera or your Instagram or a TikTok, just start. Like, that's my advice, is like, just start. It can be as small or as big as it needs to be. You can be talking to an audience of 25, you can be talking to an audience of 1,000. Those things reverberate. People find it. It lives on the internet. It has space. It has a following. You matter. Your voice matters. Your story matters.
Awesome. Yeah, that's something that we always, I always try to keep in mind with Black History Month. Is it's not just about the history, it's not just about the present, but about the future as well, right? And those young creators are certainly our future. And I also want to give a shout out. I didn't even realize the question from Chase came from Chase Darden, who's my fraternity brother at the University of San Francisco. So 06 to the good bro. And thank you for joining. He's also a journalist, so keep your eyes out for him. He's the future for us as well. And you know, that concludes our event, everybody. I want to say thank you, Janae. Thank you, Cheney. Thank you, Lisa, for, you know, lending your voices and your thoughts and everything to us. This was an amazing discussion. And thank you to attendees for joining, for taking some time out of your day to hear what we have going on. And, you know, we also want to remind y'all, don't forget to tune into Beautiful Resistance Season 3 when it comes out in June, and same for the Roxbury Film Festival 25th year. It's huge. So please show your support so they can continue getting those donations and we can continue making space. And then also for the Globes Black History Month Film Festival on Monday, February 27th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be screening James Hemings' Ghost in America's Kitchen. So please tune into that as well. So thank you, everybody.
Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you.